Hey, what's up? Welcome to DGen Ed. That's degenerative education, meaning none of this is financial advice. Just me having fun going over some Ethereum data. So it is Saturday, September 13th. Going to be going over the data from Friday, September 12th, beginning with ETFs and then going over some treasury companies. And I did get a request for an additional treasury company. I will be going over that, but I have to say I'm going to be pretty critical of it, just kind of explaining my thought process there. I hope that is helpful. But let's first begin with the ETFs. And so from the list here, we can see that for Friday, September 12th, across the board, we have seen green, BlackRock, iShare, ETF, ETHA, that is, up 165.6 million dollars worth of ETH. Then we have the grayscale ETFs here, this one being ETHE, up about $24 million. Fidelity, this is actually up the most for the ETFs for the day on Friday, up over $168 million. Then here we have Bitwise's ETF up $16.6 million, and then Van Eck over here up $6.8 million. Didn't get any for Franklin, and I forget the names of these other ones, but overall we saw up nearly $400 million in Ethereum for Friday, September 12th. And over the past 4 days, we have seen increases, inflows into Ethereum ETFs. So I think that's great. And even on Monday, while we did see a net red negative day, we did start to see some inflows for Grayscale and Fidelity, whereas for BlackRock, they were still experiencing outflows. But I do think that we have seen a real change here, and that I think that with that, price is going to be going higher. So let's quick flip over to the chart here for Ethereum. As I record this on Saturday morning, Ethereum is trading, let's see, currently at $4,722.00. Kind of odd there. Maybe I have to actually refresh this page because no, that's just odd. It's, the zeros there. Maybe it's Binance's data. I am not really sure. But we did have, a very nice upside green candle on Friday the 12th, going up 5.73%. Maybe we get a little bit of a pullback. Maybe we get a little bit of a cool off. But ultimately, I do think that ETH will be going higher. I think that we will be crossing above 5,000, heading towards 6, and so on. So I think things are looking really good. But if maybe this is a fake out, we get a shakeout before then, going higher, we still do have that 50-day simple moving average, which is now above $4,230. So maybe we do get a wick down to that, a flush out before starting to go higher. So do keep that in mind. But then coming back to the ETFs, before I do go over the data above, just wanted to flip this over to be showing ETH. And so we do have the numbers there. And it looks like on Friday, there was an increase in holdings of over 89,000 Ethereum. And actually, it does look like the daily inflow for those ETFs was actually above 90,000, nearly 91,000 ETH. That is at 90.98 thousand Ethereum. I imagine that is because it does include other ETFs that are not in the table down here. And so that makes the ETF reserve for Ethereum at a total of 6.69 million ETH. That's 6.9 right there. Might be good luck, might not be. I don't know. I imagine it's good luck. And that total represents nearly $32 billion. It looks like at $31.62 billion. And like I said, those daily inflows for Friday was nearly 91,000 ETH. And in total, the holdings of these reserves represent over 5.5% of the Ethereum supply. So very nice there. But then looking over at the strategic Ethereum reserves, that represents about 4.91 million ETH, valued at $23.22 billion. We're not going to be looking at all 71 of the participants. We are mainly just going to be focusing on the treasury companies, and it looks like there are 17 of those. Scrolling down here, you can see them. But really with these, we didn't see any activity on the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th. It's been kind of quiet. Bitmine was the last company to make a purchase, which was over 200,000 ETH, and that put their holdings to, as we all know by now, over 2 million ETH, valued at nearly $10 billion. And so that is Bitmine Immersion Technology. The ticker symbol is BMNR. They do only have 266 million in cash, so maybe they get to a point where they need to raise some cash in order to stack more ETH, but we're not there yet. And so anyways, let's look over at the chart real quick. That is ticker symbol BMNR coming over here. And so what we can see is, I did not expect this. I haven't looked at the chart, but we are now above the 50-day simple moving average, which is at a price of $49.68. So maybe we could see a retest in that, whether that's over the weekend or next week, maybe the week after. I don't know. Maybe we do a little upside pullback retest and then bounce from around $50. So I think that's a good level to keep in mind. Also kind of a psychological one. And we did break above this 50% retracement here, which is at right around $51, getting up to that 382 around 56. But that's a retracement to the downside, not the upside. So maybe I'll want to revisit a retracement here, but generally I think we're going to be putting in new all-time highs at some point. In the prior highs for Bitmine is those levels were hit on July 3rd, and that high was $161. So I'm looking for Bitmine to get up to there and probably beyond. And what we can see with the volume here, I've talked about this before, we see decreasing volume on those spikes, and now volume is starting to tick up. So it will be very interesting to see what this looks like on Monday, as there's no trading for these stocks over the weekend. But speaking of that, maybe I should look at that volume on Ethereum and just see, this has, started to go up a little bit. We see this downtrend in the tops here in ETH. Now we're seeing an uptrend in the volume, although it's not really breaking out to break new highs. We still have lower highs in the ETH volume. And so once that really does start to pick up, like I said, I think this could be heading towards 5,000, 6,000 and beyond. But yeah, we might have to wait until Monday to really see this. We will have to wait until Monday to see this pick up on the treasury companies. But yeah, 50, I think that's a good place to maybe add, maybe 51 if it does pull back. And I also should note, I did not mention it, on Friday, September 12th, Bitmine was up over 15%. It looks like 15.28%. Looking very nice there. Maybe we see a gap up on Monday. And like I said, I think this could be heading towards 161 and putting in new all-time highs. The next one on the list is going to be SharpLink Gaming. That is ticker symbol SBET or SBET. They currently hold over 837,000 ETH, valued at just under $4 billion. Unfortunately, they only have less than $72 million in cash, so I would say that they would definitely have to be raising some cash in order to increase their Ethereum holdings. And if we do look up here, it's been a while. September 2nd was the last time that SharpLink Gaming added. So I suspect that we are going to have to wait. And also just the comparison between SharpLink Gaming's addition, it was, about half of what Bitmine's was on that same day. And then following that, on September 8th, Bitmine added a ton, over 200,000 ETH, like I said, whereas SharpLink did not. They didn't add anything. So I think that, Bitmine is like the real winner of the past week as far as these treasury companies go. But anyways, let's look over at SharpLink, ticker symbol SBET. price action from Friday. And so what we can see, very nice green move upside on the day. And so SBET went up on the 12th by 8.19%. So not as much as Bitmine. And so maybe that's suggesting that there's more future upside for SBET versus Bitmine, maybe, in the near term future. But it's also just didn't really perform as well on Friday. We also don't really see volume really starting to stand out, and the trend being higher highs on the short term, but still, of course, being lower highs in that volume on the a little bit longer term. We do have the 50-day simple moving average still above us at around $20.65, also corresponding right around with that 618, that being at around $21. So I suspect that will likely be acting as some resistance, whereas with Bitmine, I think that 50-day simple moving average will be acting as support. So quite different there. And I forgot to mention it, but Bitmine closed on Friday on the 12th at $55.09. And then coming back over here to SBET, they closed at, it looks like, $17.70. But just like with Bitmine, I do think that SBET could be returning to all-time highs. And, going back here to Friday, May 30th, the highs then was those highs were $124.12. So there's definitely more upside potential with SBET, but in the name, I think that this is more of a bet, more of a gamble than something like Bitmine immersion. And just looking at the peak over here, this is from July 17th. I believe that would correspond with the peak around here. So this was from July 3rd. So I think maybe that's a more reasonable level for SBET to be returning to. And so the highs over here, actually from July 18th, were at, the high was at $40.46. So maybe that's a more reasonable target for the shorter term. Longer term, yeah, I do think that this could be hitting new all-time highs. So keep that in mind. But then coming back to the list over here, going over the request that I did get in the comment from yesterday's video. So thank you for that. Anon something, I forget what the numbers are, but I understand you want to stay anonymous. Cheers to that. And so that was not on the Ether machine, which is number 3 on the list. I actually got the request for ETHZilla, ticker symbol ETHZ, which is ranked number 5 here. And so there are a number of reasons why basically coming down below the Ether machine, I'm fairly skeptical of these. And that is going to be because of the value of their ETH holdings. So these top 3, so that's Bitmine, SharpLink, and the Ether machine, they all hold more than $1 billion worth of Ethereum. And so in my view, that gives them an edge. That gives them a lot of capital, or Ethereum, to be working with, maybe to be making financial instruments like Strategy has been doing with Bitcoin, for people to earn different types of yield effectively on the different ways that they expose themselves to leverage, risk, whatever that is. And so the more money that is in these treasury companies, the more exposure to that whatever Greek or letter would be associated with the, or maybe it's just the MNAV, I'm not really sure, but whatever would expose themselves, give them that kind of leverage. In my view, it's not really going to be as present in these companies that hold less than $1 billion worth of ETH. Is that number significant? No, it's kind of arbitrary, but it's just, to me, it seems like, who are the serious players here? The top 3. That's easy. And so I think that that's a really good thing to be thinking about, because for me personally, I'm bullish on ETH. How have I been exposing myself to get exposure to ETH? I've been stacking ETH. It's very boring. I've been adding. I was adding in April when everybody was bearish, when everybody was trashing on ETH. And so I began to gain that exposure. But now it's like, I feel like I have a good amount of ETH. I still want to be stacking, but I'd like to explore some of these treasury companies. I think they're interesting. I think Tom Lee is very interesting. I love to hear him speak. I think that Joe Lubin is very interesting. I don't think he's as charismatic of a speaker. I don't think he's as good of a salesman as Tom Lee. But being a co-founder of Ethereum, I think that his words are very valuable. I think his perspective is very valuable. And so I feel like those two, in my view, have an appeal. Pretty much everything on the list doesn't really have that. And these also have the most capital behind them. So there's also that. And also, and this is something that I think makes BitMine even more appealing than SharpLink, is if we do scroll up here, we see that the only companies, as far as, these primary treasury companies, let's see, some of them, are much lower on the list. And so I'm taking them with a grain of salt. Maybe this is a Dow. But so, the ones that really stand out here are BitMine, SharpLink, and the Ether machine. Those are the ones that we're buying over the past week. And so, I want to be gaining exposure to Ethereum. That's why I'm interested in these companies. And so over the past week, I was buying ETH, I was stacking. And so if I want to gain exposure to ETH via these companies, I want them to be stacking. And ETHZilla wasn't doing that. And if we look at the chart over here of Ethereum, I was talking about this for, since I started doing these daily videos. And, for the past, let's see the highs over here, the end of August, this pullback to the 236, I was talking about it around $4,200, $300. And, all of this time, I was stacking. If I'm to be exposing myself to risk with these treasury companies, I want them to also be stacking, and I want them to be stacking on dips. We see that we've been putting in higher lows with Ethereum. I suspect we will be putting in a higher high, new all-time highs breaking out to 5,000 and beyond. And so if an Ethereum treasury company is not stacking on a retracement that seems like it is starting to form a bottom before we get news about rate cuts next week, before we get news about the the transparency or the market structure bill, before we get news on that, the Clarity Act, I want these companies to be stacking. And so ETHZilla wasn't doing that. I was stacking. These two companies were stacking. And so, I am just not too intrigued by ETHZilla. And if we look at the chart here, we do have a bullish engulfing candle on Friday. So on the 12th, volume does look like it's increasing. So that's good. But this company is trading, at $2.55 is what they closed at. Got the 50-day simple moving average up here at $3.21. So that's going to be acting as resistance. And really, I just think that, it's it's like with cryptocurrencies. You have Bitcoin, you have Ethereum, and then you have some, larger cap alts, but then you have a bunch of just garbage diluting the space. And I'm not saying that ETHZilla is garbage. I have no idea. But I think that you're just moving too far up the risk curve when you're going beyond the Ether machine. And so this one, I really don't know. I believe all-time highs from August 13th, that was at a price of $18. So, getting back to that's not all-time highs. I guess it was all-time highs back here, October of 2016, but they weren't ETHZilla back then, I don't believe. I believe there was a ticker or name brand change to become, this Ethereum reserve. So this was a pivot. And so far, based on the data that I see over here, I've not been impressed. I think that it's too much risk, and I don't think it's worth it. That's just my opinion. I want to be stacking ETH as opportunities present themselves. As I have extra cash on the side, I want to be adding to BitMine, and I want to be adding to SharpLink. Other than that, I think that this is all noise. I think that the majority of this is risk. I think that the majority of these companies will not manage that risk well. And I think that the market top for this crypto bull cycle, the fourth year following in the Bitcoin cycle, the year after the halving, I think that the top will happen following, or perhaps the bottom will happen when, all of these companies or the majority of them have been liquidated. So yeah, I mean, I think that BitMine and SharpLink are the only ones to be paying attention to. That's why I cover them. I appreciate the request. Hopefully this was helpful. But yeah, I mean, I don't see the value in it, especially, I mean, because they weren't buying when there was an opportunity to. And so I don't think that one needs to expose to that risk when one could just be buying direct. But anyways, as always, those are just my thoughts. If you found them helpful, make sure you like the video, share your thoughts in the comments down below, and make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos like this. And I will be putting out another Crypto Corner Stat Stacker shortly. Just got to record it. Hopefully you guys have a great rest of your Saturday, great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one, which I guess will be Tuesday morning. But yeah, take care, and actually I'll see you Sunday evening for Ticker Request Live. I'll see you then. Take care, guys. Bye.